I think most people at one point or another in their life turn their mind's eye around to see the path that they have traveled. Unfortunately for some, that would be including me, see this path that they lived has been a path of destruction, not only to themselves, but to their family and loved ones. When I came to that point in my life, after years of mental illness, bipolar disorder, addictions, having been on psychiatric drugs, but to no avail. I thought that I could just quit at any time these episodes in life that were very challenging. But at one point I thought to myself, you do not want to die having given up. You don't want to perish not putting this one last effort in. And if you failed to truly change, if you failed doing that, having this real sincere effort, then you could live with it. You could understand that there was nothing to be done, that there's nothing that could be done. And there was no amount of counseling that I had received which would help me at that time. Number one, because of the arrogance of my ego. And number two is because I didn't want to change. Having been a creative person, which goes hand in hand, I think, with mental illness. The Van Goghs of the world, I guess. I had been studying philosophy and religion in this quest for the sanctity of inner peace. I had studied the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata. It goes on and on and on, this list of information that I had studied in hope that there would be a magic bullet, that I would have this expansive, sudden, this explosion of realism that would finally quench the thirst that I had been experiencing. The thirst of finding inner peace and tranquility. So I studied the religions, and I went to the various temples, and I talked to these gurus and these yogis and these pastors and these rabbis, all with the hopes that somebody from some outside agent could come in and save the day. When none of this happened, I thought, I have to try something. I have to find a way. And mind you, all this took place over decades, not just years. I would go out and screw up and have too much to drink or do too much drugs. And I would go home and spend the rest of the night wide awake, reading my various books of philosophy and psychology. Finally, I decided to try mindfulness meditation, which is also known as Vipassana in Buddhism, to just sit and observe the mind, to see if by turning my mind's eye inward that I could confront these demons that were laying around inside me. I started off, and again, this is several years that it took me. And to be honest, I'd done all the praying that there could be prayed, and got down on my knees until my knees were bloody, and I was at this point, this end point. So I had moved back into the temple that I had lived in previously, and instead of spending my times doing the ceremonies and the rituals and being paraded around different organizations as a sideshow act, I retreated back into myself and started a very austere and expansive meditation practice. And you'll find once you commit yourself to something like this, it's extremely hard. At first, it's like torture to sit still and just watch your mind. One thing about addiction is it is impulse control. Whenever you have an addictive personality, you have a lack of impulse control. And it's the same mental feeling that you have when you're hungry or when you're thirsty, and you'll do anything to get something to eat. And then you just eat ravenously until you get sick. It's that same thing. It's that same natural response. And whenever you do meditation, especially when you devote yourself to a consistent practice, you start to notice these little nuances of your thought pattern. It's like the difference if you get in an argument and you're in the middle of it and you're yelling at somebody and you're totally out of control and you're saying things that are going to hurt the person who you're yelling at. And then somebody comes in and screams out, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you stop and you realize, hey, you're acting like an idiot. And it calms yourself down and you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry. But you all of a sudden snap out of it. It's the same thing with addiction. You're in the middle of it and you're consumed by it. Or you might be driving down the road and all of a sudden that thought will say, oh, you need a drink, or you need a line, or you need a joint. And then that thirst, that desire starts to build up. It starts to rev its engine until you cannot help yourself. and you do anything to get that fix. What meditation does, and it takes time, I say it's like panning for gold. It's a little bit at a time. Your mind becomes restless and it's lashing out and it's like, stop meditating. Your back hurts and all you want to do, your mind screams, just stop this. But as you continue, and if you're consistent, little minutes at a time, your mind starts to calm down. Little by little, it stops resisting your efforts. It placates itself. And then you have those realizations through observation. And through this consistent practice, day after day, over and over again, if you track it carefully, you start to gain insights to how your mind is working, insights to your personality. Through consistent practice, through the attainment, through realization and observation, which gathers insight, that's when you develop into enlightenment. Enlightenment, not in the grandiose Buddhist nirvana aspect of enlightenment, but into a smaller version of personal enlightenment, which is a discovery. It's like turning on the light in a dark room where you can't see anything. All of a sudden you see where everything's at. During meditation, through consistency of practice, you gain that sense of self-enlightenment to where you could see before it happens when these cravings start to build. And so what happens is just like turning off the faucet, you're able to turn off that desire. It's like making your way around a dangerous curve in a mountain pass. And once you get past it and you're going down this smooth road, you're like, wow, that was close. It's the same thought. It's the same effect. But there's no chanting or mantra that's involved in this. There's no what I call woo-woo. You know, people spend so much money taking these different sound healing bath, ice bath, yogic practices, stuff like that. It's just a matter of meditation. But something so simple is extremely, extremely difficult because it's like trying to run a marathon. You know, we try to run a marathon without having ever practiced, and we go out and we fail miserably. We can only make it a mile down the road. But if it's a consistent daily practice, little by little, we can come to these realizations and these insights. We understand this thought, this thirst, this desire, and we're able to cut it off like turning off the water of a faucet. That's self-mind control, self-discipline. It's the same thing. It's the same mechanics as if someone who is disciplined at doing daily household chores. that and self-discipline as far as not drinking, not doing drugs, etc. It's all interconnected with the same behavior patterns and the same techniques of realization and disciplined action. To say that it is Buddhist practice, well, it is, because there's the reliance on meditation and the importance of meditation is pretty much exclusive a Buddhist practice. But there's no praying to the Buddha. It is eternally self-discipline. The Buddha says, Atta depe viharata, ta sanana anyana sadhana. The Pali in which he spoke. The translation, which is, dwell making yourself your own island, your own refuge, and no one else your refuge. Because it's when we realize that we have the capability of becoming the liberator of our own self, the author of our own emancipation. When we understand this, that's when we can decide whether or not we want to put the effort of living a life of discipline, which breeds satisfaction and solace, which turns into peace of mind. The Buddhist aspect of this is to understand that life is not about being happy. Life is about realizing the truth of the nature of the human condition. But it requires work every day. And these realizations can offer us a freedom. This practice can offer us strength to where we can overcome any obstacle that is put in our place. Because we realize that good things happen and bad things will happen to us. But it's our preparedness for any situation that we know that there's going to be times in our life where there's going to be danger and struggle and strife, far more than there is with moments of elation and supreme happiness. But once we realize that we will handle everything, including our own death, then happiness becomes a byproduct. So I invite all of you to practice meditation. You don't have to become Buddhist, but these techniques that were developed by the Buddha, the way he looked at this practice with rational thinking, could be something that will truly change your life. Thank you for listening.